Good day. I'm Mary Louise Lauffer. Many of you know me by my nickname Wiesy. I live in Lewis, Delaware, which is in the coastal part of Delaware. We live about a mile from the beach. We border the Great Marsh and about 2 miles from Cape Henlopen State Park, which is an area of great natural beauty. And that park borders both the bay and the Atlantic. There's quite a diversity of what you might find and also what you might see as far as nature and wildlife there. The area was very well trafficked in the colonial period. Philadelphia being up the Delaware River, a lot of ships were transporting goods up and back. And because the vagaries of weather and the coast in general, we have hundreds of shipwrecks that dot the coast in this area. These shipwrecks have brought many artifacts into the Delaware Bay and also to the ocean side. And even more recently, about 8 years ago, a wreck, the Debrak, happened to be rediscovered by some dredging, and a number of artifacts came up on Lewis Beach. I've been lucky to find some artifacts there. I guess you'd call me a lifelong beachcomber. I grew up on the Jersey Shore, Long Beach Island, where we spent summers and weekends collecting shells, crabs, things of interest. Didn't find a lot of sea glass back then, but I'm sure it was there, but I never found any. We lived in Delaware and spent a lot of time in the Delmarva Peninsula and Chesapeake area. I'm very familiar with this area and love its beauty, as you will if you ever come and visit. I moved to Massachusetts for graduate school and stayed in that area for about 15 years. It's very lucky that I live right on a beach in Nahant. Every single day I was beachcombing, walking my dogs. At that point, I didn't know that other people collected sea glass or sea pottery. I was only looking for blue and white pottery, and I was actually able to find quite a bit of it. I'm going to show you my first jar. These are some of my first pieces. I have my pottery in a separate container, and I probably won't use these in any of my work just because it's sort of my history, my start in sea glass. I visited the Virgin Islands with my parents in 1965, and then went back vacationing there 5 or 6 times in the next 15 years. Finally, I decided in the early 1980s to move there permanently. When I did, I was astounded at the amount of sea glass that was there. It's changed, but at that point there were beaches where you could actually crunch on sea glass. I know I'm making you jealous, but it was true. I was a teacher, so I was able to go out every afternoon after school and go for a swim or a snorkel and basically find little treasures. And I was still only collecting blue and white pottery at that stage, and there was quite a bit of that. I met and married Carl Butler, who also shared the love of beachcombing and nature and music and bottles. He had quite an extensive collection of black glass bottles from the Virgin Islands, some of which you see here. We have many more, believe me, all over the house. And I had moved with my collection of aqua bottles from Massachusetts in general and also the Delaware Delmarva area. So we melded our bottle collection. It is still growing all around the house. We would go out on weekends on a boat to uninhabited keys. We did quite a bit of research on shipwrecks in the 1800s and also in old settlements where we might have the best places to look for artifacts. We were very lucky because our research usually paid off. But we also had another local history that helped us. We had a number of friends who would go as children out to the Keys, and they would take any type of bottle that they would find and they would set them up on the top of the cliffs and do target practice with slingshots. In some cases they wanted the cod marble, in some cases they were just having fun. At any rate, we would find the results of their slingshot practice many years later. They were probably shooting the slingshots in the 1950s when they were young, and the bottles were probably from the 1800s. But by the time that we found them, 1980s, they were quite smoothed and beautiful. I still didn't know that other people collected sea glass, sea pottery, bottles. Yes, a lot of bottle collectors. I knew about that. But in 2008, my brother, living in Maryland, sent me the Richard Lamott book, The Lure of Sea Glass. And he also mentioned that there was a sea glass festival that was going to be held in Lewis, Delaware, the same year. I was intrigued because what is a sea glass festival? Are there other people that do the same thing? So I actually flew up, visited family, and went to the sea glass festival. Well, that was it for me. I was hooked. I saw so many artisans with their wares using sea glass and all manner jewelry, crafts of all types. Collectors were there showing their collections. Just a wonderful experience for me, and I'm glad that I met some of you that may be watching. At any rate, I returned to the VI and said, you know, I better start collecting other colors besides blue and white, because people at the festival had all kinds of colors. And well, of course, I could have been doing that for years, but hadn't. So I really started amassing quite an interesting collection of colors and started actually using them in crafts and also making jewelry. I was, in some small fairs. I was still, a full-time art teacher, but I was able to do that. And I also took in a lot of sea glass for my students. In 2013, I heard of another sea glass festival to be held in Lewis, Delaware. And I decided to apply as a vendor, which I did, was accepted, and my husband and I flew up for that. We absolutely loved the town, and I think that's part of the reason that we moved back to this area, that festival. We were also in the NASCA festivals in Ocean City, Maryland, which is only an hour away from here. So it sort of brought me back to the roots I had in this part of the country. After many years of living in the Virgin Islands, almost 40 for me at that point and 50 for my husband, we both retired and we decided that it was time for a move. And here we are in Lewis, Delaware. We're now upstairs in my studio, and I have quite a bit of my sea glass collection up here, but everything that is seen in a display case, whatever, is fair game to be used in some type of project. For instance, I love to collect kick-ups, and many of these are perfect for jewelry. I've made them into pendants, bracelets, and there's a few really teeny ones that could become rings. I have various thrift store finds where I sort my sea glass after it's clean, and basically I sort by shape and function, not necessarily by color. So I will separate out anything I think would be craft related, and anything that is absolutely perfectly smooth and flat will probably go into my category of bezel jewelry. I had this vase bottom that I think I found in the 1980s, and it was sitting up on top with some of my other interesting bottoms, and I said, oh, I'm going to make that into a funky vase. So I did. This is my soldering station. I have everything that I need right here, all of my tools, files, finishing equipment, and things here. And I use a little Smith torch for soldering the bezels onto my backing. I have some gold bezel and also fine silver bezels. So these are all works in progress that I need to finish very soon for a festival. Everything here has one more step to do. Some have maybe 3 steps of soldering. My favorite tools that I use in this area were my dad's, and I inherited some of his silver, but I have his copper tongs, his ring holder, his saw, and I really like the fact that I can use tools that have been passed on to me. This is my design and layout table. It used to be my dad's drafting table. I cut my bezel wire here to fit around my pieces, and I use my trusty sharp scissors for that and mark them. Then when everything is precise, I'll take it over to my soldering area. I decide on my designs and which pieces of sea glass I might use. I've been bending these to shape. I have some beautiful pieces of sea glass and sea pottery that are very odd shaped, and I decided to make heavy cuff wire bracelets with those, and I'm making more of different sizes. Here are a few examples of some of my finished bezel work. And you'll see I tend to favor my blues, but so I have a lot of blue and white pottery that I'm using. Some of that is from the Delaware shipwrecks, and some of that is from Virgin Islands shipwrecks. I tend to design very simply, so I like to showcase the qualities of the sea glass And since mine tend to be older pieces that I use in my bezel work, they have a lot of beautiful pitting and they're very thick. So I like to showcase that with a very simple setting. This is my drilling table where I drill a lot of little nuggets for earrings. I also make mobiles and such things. I just recycle pieces of plastic and have this filled with water. Use a diamond drill bit. And so that area I keep isolated because I splatter water around a lot. This area is where I cut my panel frame glass for my sea glass, sea bottle panels. I need a lot of area to lay them out, so I use this table also. This is for sanding the edges of the framing glass. I usually tend to find a bottle as my center focal point, and these are both from Delaware beaches. This is all historic glass from the Virgin Islands and a really cool sea pottery, which I just saw over in my collection and just decided to use that. This is one I decided to make with fall colors. This is a piece that's very special. My husband has a collection of the P. Herring bottles with their embossing, and this was a broken shard. I'm going to make that as a present for him. Started making the sea glass, sea bottle pottery panels is a story in itself. I had sort of a major health issue and I could not work on anything. I was getting a lot of different types of treatments and I couldn't work in the studio. I couldn't make jewelry, couldn't come upstairs. So what I ended up doing is taking everything as an opportunity. I said, okay, one thing I can do laying down is foil sea glass. Because basically, if you have this, you can do it laying down, which is what I ended up doing. And I had like 6 to 8 hours at chemo when I just did nothing but foil sea glass. So I have a lot of it, which I did in that period, and I'm still using it. But it allowed me to think of ideas and stay positive and work on, projects mentally. When finally I was able to walk, and I actually, started making the frames and doing the soldering outside. My husband's the collector of black glass bottles, and I am the collector of bottle top shards, and this is my collection. I have a lot of them out in the garden and different places, but these are ones that I might use in a project. I make some shadow boxes. Here are a few of my shadow boxes from upcycled old cigar boxes. And as you can see, I only put historic glass, sometimes shells or other finds in there, but that's how I use some of my bottle tops. If you're like me, when you're beachcombing, you also bring home driftwood. I like to put pieces together. These two pieces reminded me of a cormorant. This one had a beautiful eye and a long beak of an eagle, I thought. One of my favorite pieces, driftwood and sea glass. I love turtles and I used to swim with them pretty much every day in the Virgin Islands. So all of these driftwood pieces I found at the same beach one day, and as soon as I found the piece of the head, I knew I had to make the turtle. This is the area I generally use for my driftwood collages. I hope you've enjoyed a little tour of my art studio, my creative space. I think it might be interesting to know that in my case, I'm not an organized type of artist where I say, okay, I'm going to work on only jewelry this week. I'm going to work on panels. I really go by what I see, and because that's one reason I have all of my displays in this room. So on any given day, I might make something like a vase, or put together some driftwood, or work on my jewelry, or actually just make some type of collage compilation with my work. So I think, that's important. I may not have my beautiful Virgin Islands studio where I overlook the ocean could see the sunrise, sunset from my studio. But I have a great workable space here, and I think I've come up with a lot of creative ideas and projects. So I hope that I can meet some of you at some point, maybe at a festival, or if you're ever in this area, you're absolutely welcome to stop by and see my studio. Thank you.